my dears, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon, and today I've got another book talk video to share with you guys. And today we are talking about My Absolute Darling by Gabriel Tallent. Now, I heard about this book from my friend Kathy over on the channel Kitty Cat Loves Makeup. She had mentioned it in her most recent monthly favorites video, and she warned us that it was dark and disturbing. And I thought, you know, I'm okay with that. A lot of books have elements of that in them, and, you know, a lot of times it serves to make them more real. So I ordered it, and I read it, and oh my word, she was not kidding. This book is very dark, and it's very gritty, and it's very disturbing, and it's very disturbing right from the first chapter. Before we get too far into this review, I want to let you guys know that there's going to be heavy topics talked about here. I'm not going to go into details like the book does, of course, you know, but just know. So this book takes place in Northern California, and our main character is a 14-year-old girl named Julia, but everyone calls her Turtle. She lives in a sort of out-of-the-way area, sort of outside of town, very isolated, and she lives there with her dad, and his name is Martin. Turtle's mom died when Turtle was very young. She died in a water sport accident. She was like snorkeling or scuba diving or something, and she goes into the water, and she never comes out. Turtle's grandfather lives nearby in like a trailer on the same piece of land that Turtle and her dad live on, and we're set up with it being a very isolated life for Turtle. She doesn't have any friends. She's not doing well at school. She's struggling pretty much on every level, and that is thanks in entirety to the abuse that she receives at home from her father. He abuses her on every possible level, from verbally, emotionally, mentally, and sexually. And that's what kicks off the book, is our introduction to this abuse. And it is so gut-wrenchingly unsettling that I didn't know if I would be able to continue reading. When I started reading it, I had taken my mom to the salon for a hairdresser's appointment. And I'm just sitting in the waiting room waiting for her, and I'm reading it, and I get to the end of that first chapter, and I'm just like looking around, hoping nobody could see over my shoulder what I was reading, because it was so upsetting. So like I said, I'm not going to go into the details, and in fact, I haven't even written down any notes about this book for this video, because I didn't even want to write about it, because I felt like that would take me too deep back into it, and I didn't want to go back in there. So the abuse is set up. We know what's happening. Then we start to see Turtle at school. There's a teacher there, her name is Anna, who has taken a specific interest in Turtle. She kind of knows that something's not right. She can tell by the way Turtle acts, by the way Turtle talks to her and to other students. There's a lot of anger in Turtle, and a lot of misogyny that has been passed down from her father. And so Anna keeps setting up meetings between her and the principal and Turtle's dad, and it's just nothing changes, and she doesn't know what else to do. She tries to sort of facilitate friendships between Turtle and other students, like when Turtle's struggling with her vocabulary words. She says, well, you know, there's this one girl who's kind of being bullied, but she's really great at vocabulary, and you're kind of an intense presence in this school, so I think maybe if when you saw this other girl being bullied, if you said something about it, if you spoke up, I think the bullies would leave her alone. And then I bet you could sort of strike up a friendship with her, and she could help you with your vocabulary words. But like, Turtle's not interested. So from there, we go back and forth kind of between home life, which is horrible, and then school life, which Turtle kind of makes horrible for herself. because of the way she was raised and the ways that she has absolutely zero social skills in a setting like that. So then one night, Turtle sneaks out of the house and she comes upon two boys in the forest nearby her house, and they're kind of out on a, adventure, but they're lost. And so Turtle's kind of hanging back in the woods, and she can hear them, and she's kind of like, they're lost, I could help them. And, at first she tries to remain unseen, but then she sort of puts herself in the position to be seen after listening to them for a while, and she comes to the conclusion that they're probably not harmful. They're just a couple years older than her. Their names are Jacob and Brett. And she lets them know she's there, and then she gets them back to where they need to be. And so they walk to Brett's house, and there we find out that Brett's mom was a friend of Turtle's mom. And she knows Turtle's dad, and she's kind of like, oh my gosh, Julia, I haven't seen you in so many years. Like, how's your dad doing? And then she wants to bring Turtle home because she wants to talk to Martin, her dad. And, as they're driving there, she's asking questions like, oh, has your dad ever, is he seeing anyone? He was always such a charismatic guy. Has he moved on since your mom passed away? And then she kind of tries to get a bit of info out of Turtle by saying, oh, but he sure could have a temper, couldn't he? Like, even back when we were kids, he always had a temper. Like, do you find that? But Turtle, of course, kind of knows what she's getting at, and so she kind of shuts down in on herself. And then once Brett's mom and then Brett and Jacob bring her back out to her house, she kind of just goes back in while her dad kind of talks to Brett's mom for a bit, and then they go in the house, and then her dad's really awful about, like, teasing her, and it's nasty, and the abuse, it just continues. Then we get to meet Turtle's grandpa. We meet him a few times throughout the story, and you can tell he really cares about Turtle. But then from her dad's point of view, whenever her dad is talking about her grandfather, he talks about, what a bastard he is, and how he was the worst, and how he swore he'd never grow up to be like his father, although chances are he's exponentially worse than whatever his father did, because we never get to know why Martin hates his own father so much. And from our and Turtle's point of view, we don't know why, because, at this point, he's an old man living alone. Like, whatever vitriol used to run through him is long gone. So we just know him from Turtle's point of view, and he cares a lot about Turtle. And, she tells him about how there's this boy she kind of likes, and how she wants to go to the dance, and she kind of asks for his advice on, how can I let my dad let me go to the dance? Like, I need a dress. And so her grandpa sort of gives her advice about that, and because we've come to know that Martin, Turtle's father, is very possessive of her. Like, he doesn't want her to have friends, because to him that's a threat to the relationship that they have, however sick and twisted it is. After a bit, during a particularly nasty fight that Martin has with his father, Turtle's grandfather, he has a stroke and he passes away. And this just really sets her dad off in a weird way, and he leaves. He gets in his truck and he leaves. And Turtle doesn't know if he's ever coming back or what's happening, but he's gone. He just kind of snaps and he leaves. So now Turtle's kind of on her own, and she doesn't mind it, really. She misses him, because no matter what, no matter how badly he's abusing her, there's still that part in her that, because it's been going on her entire life for the most part, she doesn't know any different. And as much as she hates him, she loves him equally as much. So he's gone, and she kind of just starts, doing her own thing. she finds Jacob and Brett, and they spend time together almost every day. She gets to know Jacob's family, Jacob's sister. They take her clothes shopping. She starts to... There's one night where her and Jacob go out by the beach, and they end up getting stranded and just massacred by the water. When the water comes back in, they're out sort of on the beach on low tide, and then when the water comes back in, they are tossed around like rag dolls. Like 3 of the fingers on Turtle's hand get broken. Jacob has a bad head injury, but he's okay. She's the one that's in real trouble with her fingers, and then there's a big wound on her back. And eventually, once they get it figured out and they get back to shore, which takes a couple of days, it was the weekend, so he's kind of like, I gotta get home before my parents get home Monday morning, or they're gonna be so mad. And Turtle says something to him like, if they get mad, will you be safe? Will you be okay, or will you be in danger? And he kind of laughs at first because, you know, of course not. But then he stops laughing when he realizes that it's a serious question, and he kind of starts to realize that being safe in your own home when a parent is mad is not something Turtle is familiar with, because she is not safe when she is home with her dad. Whether he's angry or not, but especially when he's angry. So this time passes, this goes on, it's the summertime, they're enjoying the summer together. And then one day Martin comes home. And he comes home and he's not alone, he has a young girl with him. And I don't mean like a, I mean a child. And Turtle's like, who the hell is this? Like, who is this? And Martin says, oh, you know, we're going to be taking care of her for a while for her parents. And Turtle's like, okay. And so part of her just immediately hates this kid, because I'm guessing in some way there's a bit of jealousy there, because, you know, her dad's kind of taking a shining to a new little girl. But also, like I said earlier, because of her father, Turtle's kind of been trained into having a lot of misogynistic thoughts about other women in general, and girls. So Turtle decides she's going to keep a close eye on this girl and her dad, and she wants to figure out what it is, why this girl is here. And there's some really weird violent stuff that happens at this point with Turtle and the young girl and the father that I won't even get into because it's too much. But Turtle starts to wonder, like, where is this child from? Questions get asked, and eventually Turtle finds out that her dad took this child from a gas station when he was out on his, like, grief road trip after his dad died. And Turtle's like, you took her from a gas station? He's like, yeah, she was in a bad situation. She was there with this man who was her stepfather and was not treating her right, so I took her because I thought we could raise her and treat her better. Like, which is so insane of a thought process, right? And so over time, Turtle notices that he stops coming to her as often in the nights, and she doesn't go down to him in the nights anymore. And one night she hears him moving in the hallways, and she thinks, oh God, like he's coming into my room again. But instead she hears him go down the stairs to where the little girl is sleeping, and she hears him carrying her up to his room, and that's what sets her off. There's something about it like that. It just triggers inside of her. You know, he did this to me for many years, but he's not going to do it to another little girl. So she goes up and she's listening at the door to make sure that what she thinks is happening is. And then once she knows it is, she bursts in. She hits him with like a gun. There's tons of guns in this house. They're a big gun family. And she's known how to shoot for many, many years. So she's got this gun. I think it's the gun she hits him with. Or she kicks him. Or somehow she gets him down. She grabs the little girl and they run out to her grandfather's truck. So one of the things that she's really worried about and that has sort of stopped her from leaving before was she thinks that if, like, her dad kind of knows about Jacob, which is the friend, which is the friend she's made out of the two boys that she's most serious about and who she loves with all of her heart. And she's always worried that if she left, he would, to punish her, go and kill Jacob. So that's what she's worried about. So she drives a bit of a ways up the road between her house and Jacob's house, and then she pulls over and she goes up sort of on a hill and she lays in the grass and she's waiting, and she thinks, when he comes, I'm going to shoot him from here. But then time passes and he doesn't come. So she gets back in her granddad's truck and they drive to Jacob's house, and when she gets there, there's tons of cars in the driveway. There's a homecoming sign, so she's like, oh, this is, I guess the school year started. Like, she's been so wrapped up in everything going on with this girl and her dad that she didn't even notice the summer had ended and school had started again. So she's like, whatever, she's panicking, she's frantic. So she runs up and she finds Brett, and she's like, where's Jacob? And he's like, I don't know, Turtle, like, he's not here. His sister threw this party. He didn't really want to be here because you weren't going to be here, so he wasn't really interested. So she's just in a panic. And then she hears her dad pull up, and he comes in, guns blazing. They get as many people to leave the party as possible. They're screaming like, you have to go, you have to run right now, it's not safe. But Brett won't leave her. So they're inside Jacob's house. Now in this living room is the young girl, Brett's friend, and then the dad. And, you know, her dad, Martin, is telling him, like, you have to leave because he's like, you're Caroline's son, right? That's the friend from before that knew their mom. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, you have to get out of here or you're going to get yourself shot. And he's like, I'm not leaving, Turtle. Like, by the time Turtle gets to the house, she looks absolutely battered because when she was fighting her dad, like, he was fighting back. And there's just bruises all over her neck, all over her body. And Brett's like, I'm not leaving her here with you. And he does get shot. He gets shot in the back. He doesn't die or anything like that. So she starts to run to the kitchen, and then she gets shot. And it's just... So she's running, and there's so much happening. She's bleeding. She takes some duct tape, sort of tapes her wound shut, and then she gets out of the house, and then he is on her heels, and then she shoots him once they're close to the water. And then she goes over and she sort of pulls him over to her, and just to really make sure that it's over and he's dead, she takes the knife that her grandfather's given her out of her pocket, and she makes sure he's dead. And there's so much conflicted feelings with her, because, like I said earlier, as much as she hates him, she loves him. But she knew that she could never be free if he still walked this earth. So she gets up and sort of walks out of the water and back up to the hill where people are waiting and the police are there and everything like that. Then there's sort of an epilogue where we see that Turtle is now living with that teacher, Anna, who feels a sense of guilt for not having stepped up sooner. And, you know, she apologizes so often to Turtle, saying, I'm so sorry, like, I knew in my heart what was happening, but I didn't do anything, and that's my fault, and I should have. And of course Turtle's like, I mean, what could you do? You did all you could, or all you knew how to do. And yeah, it's a doozy. So the very, very end of the book is, we find out that Turtle hasn't seen Jacob in a year, because when he came to see her in the hospital, you know, she was hooked up to machines. They had to do surgeries, and then more surgeries to remove the infections, and she was hooked up to bags and just all kinds of things, and she didn't want him to see her like that. So she said, give me a year. And so it's now been a year since homecoming dance, and there's another homecoming dance, and Anna says, I have to go and be a chaperone tonight, I'm so sorry. And Turtle kind of says, maybe I could go. And Anna says, you know, maybe, but like, is that a good idea? Because it maybe be a real bad trigger for you. Like, there'd be loud music. It's a party setting, like when everything happened. And she says, you know, I don't know if it'll be okay, but I want to try. And then Anna's kind of really trying to get her to not do that. She's like, you know, let's put it off. When you're ready, you'll be ready, but I don't know if you are yet. And she just kind of keeps pushing it. And the book ends with us thinking that Anna's going to relent and let her try to come. Because at one point she's like, you know, Jacob will be there. And Turtle's like, I know, I want to see him. And so that's sort of where it ends, just with Anna not saying yes, you can come, but us kind of feeling like she's going to let her. So there you go, you guys. That was my absolute darling. That's what her dad used to call her. Which makes that phrase really disturbing now. Anyway, would I recommend it? I don't know. If you think you can handle it, then sure, read it. It's, like I said, it's heavy and it's really disturbing. The sexual abuse scenes are very, very detailed. The language used in them is really unsettling. So, I mean, if you think that that's something you'd want to read, then yeah, I'd recommend it. It's a very interesting book on the subject of abuse and its effects and violence and healing. My biggest complaint about it is it's written in the third person, and I feel like it would have been more helpful if it was written in the first person. From Turtle's point of view, we would have got more, you know, inner dialogue and thought process, and got to know a bit more about her. I feel that was really lacking by having it in the third person. What else? One thing I do want to say about Gabriel Tallent is he's absolutely masterful at describing things. In this book, sometimes that's a detriment because you're like, oh my god, stop talking about it. But also when he's talking about the forest and the ocean, it's so beautiful and so beautifully described. And as someone who loves the ocean so much, I loved hearing about it in such detail. It made you feel like you were there. So yeah, that was great. But again, I would have liked it in the first person, I think. So there you have it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this book talk. Before we go, I want to do a quick shout out. Today, the channel that I want to shout out is A Little Piece of Sylvia. Sylvia is the sweetest woman. I absolutely love watching her channel. She does unboxings, she does makeup looks, she does all kinds of beauty-related content. She's so sweet. She's so supportive. I absolutely love her. So I will, of course, link her channel down below. If you would like to check her out, please do. And if you do, please let her know that I sent you. Thanks so much, you guys. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you tomorrow.